Amen. You know, when I think about a lot of these things and a lot of the arguments that we hear from a secular world, a lot of it is like, oh, okay, man, how can I trust the Bible and it was written by man? And of course, you could argue and say, well, history books are written by man, and you still trust history books. But where I'm getting is, what is the importance of the finding or the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and why us as Christians should that it should matter to us?
All right, well, the Dead Sea Scrolls are our oldest copies of the Bible.
Mhm.
They were produced between 200 BC and all the way up to maybe 50 AD. But most of the ones that we have found in the caves of Qumran, because these were documents that were copied by scribes and they were preserved within a community, and they wanted to keep them intact. So they read a verse in the Bible that says, if you want them to stay for a long time, put them in an earthenware jar. So they created these jars. They put these scrolls, rolled up parchment or rolled up papyrus.
Mm.
Parchment is an animal skin. The other is made of a plant. Which is quite fragile. But when you roll these up and put them into a jar, and you seal the jar with a lid and pitch and all kind of things, and it sits in a cave for thousands of years, they're going to be pretty good shape. And so one of the documents they found was a complete book of Isaiah. It happened to be the longest book in the Old Testament, one of the longest books. The Psalms are a little bit longer, but of all the regular written books, this is 66 chapters. So and for example, here's how that helps us. Nice, we have this old copy, but our Bibles in the English or whatever language someone may speak are all translated from Hebrew manuscripts that go back about 1,000 years, called the Masoretic text. So at one point in Jewish history, they decided to take whatever manuscripts they had and compile them and get the best readings and produce one Bible called the Masoretic text. And that's the only standard Jewish Bible. And from that, we translate all of our other languages. But the Bible and the events it records go back long before just 1,000 years ago. So people would wonder, well, yeah, someone had to pass that on. They had to copy it because they didn't have copy machines. So it had to be done by hand. And these people didn't wear glasses, didn't have glasses. They had to, and the letters looked very similar. You could mess up lots of stuff. How do we know we have now what they had then? It could be totally different. So someone says, how can you trust the Bible? Again, men wrote it. Now, men didn't make it up. Okay, men wrote it down, but the revelation came directly from God, and they testified to that. Some of them had to go study the things they wrote down to understand what God was saying, because it didn't come from them. It came through them. But with the Dead Sea Scrolls, it came from men copying that previous document. But now you have this Masoretic text, 1,000 years old. You go to this Isaiah scroll, which is 1,200 years earlier, and you can compare word for word with Isaiah from 1,000 AD to one that's 200 BC, and very great differences, in some places.
Yeah.
But 95% of the text is exactly the same. And the only thing that are differences are really sometimes spelling differences, which weren't, part of an inspired word at all. No one cared how it's spelled, all the words there, or word order, or sometimes you may find something left out or put in, which never changed the meaning. It only enhanced the meaning in some cases, and that was it. So we now know that the scribes, who became scribes from birth, basically, they're born into a profession. That's all they do their whole life. They memorize the text, but they don't write from memory, but they still had to do that.
Yeah.
And they line everything out. They dress professionally. It's like a job. Even the rules of the scribe, it tells us one point, if a king walked into the room and called the scribe by name, and he's writing the scroll in the name of God, he cannot lift his eyes to acknowledge the king until they finish his writing. I mean, it's very careful things that were done. And we have the evidence of them now from the Dead Sea Scrolls, because we can compare what we have now with what was then.
Yeah.
So very reliable, very trustworthy. And that's been a real help to say we have a stable text of Scripture. We don't have to doubt
Yeah.
that what we have now is what they had then.
Yeah.
But we also, and we have literally pieces of every book of the Old Testament. Now,
Mhm.
it's the Old Testament because these things were done before there was a New Testament. So it was just the Jewish community before Jesus or before the church started and the New Testament was written. But, I mean, we have this wonderful witness. And these people also had a community for 200 years, and they're studying the Bible, and they're giving us commentaries on it. So they tell us about things. And that's in almost every commentary is from prophetic perspective
Mhm.
because they believe they were living in the last
Yeah.
days, and the Romans were in control of their country. They wanted to be delivered from that. They saw the promises of God that were coming, and they believed that. Now, they had the timing wrong,
Mm.
but they had these prophecies right. And they're very helpful to see that they took the Bible literally.
Mm.
You know, when God promised He was going to restore Israel and do these particular details, that's exactly what they believed, and they were right to believe that. And we believe that too now. Now, there's a lot of debate
Yeah, of course.
about that now, but when you look at a Jewish community before the time of Jesus, what their expectation was, it was a very literal hope in these
Mhm.
things, and they had a very messianic hope. And when Jesus came, He fulfilled those messianic hopes and
Yeah.
all those scriptures that,
Mhm.
and the same way they were interpreting them, He fulfilled them.
Yeah.
So we still have lots that Jesus said and lots of prophecies about His coming again. And we can accept those just as literally as they did
As
back
in
then. And
mhm.
Jesus proved that by fulfilling them literally.
Mhm.